Is on a lockdown right now, and Canadian officials are intimidating journalists. This as a result from yesterday's deadly shooting. Dan Dix from Ottawa when we come back right after this.
DNA Force.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in.
DNA Force.
No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies.
DNA Force.
We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA Force today at INFOWARSLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
DNA Force.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by INFOWARS Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at INFOWARSLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit INFOWARSLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. INFOWARSLife.com.
Now, earlier today on the Alex Jones Show, Dan Dix gave us an update on the shooting at Parliament in Ottawa. And he joins us again live on the scene. Dan, thanks for joining us.
No problem. My pleasure to be here.
Hey, what's this I hear about that they're not releasing any security footage of the gunman from Parliament? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that on the way to cover this, that conveniently, none of the footage from inside Parliament actually shows any clips from this individual who apparently walked in there past security, past metal detectors with a long gun in hand. And some speculate that he knew where the camera was and knew where to dodge things, but it is very, very fishy. It's interesting, to say the least. So we're going to try to keep it a very close eye on that one, that's for sure, too.
Now, what about Canadian officials telling the public not to post any pictures or any videos that they may have captured on the internet or on social media? Because naturally, there would be people that just happen to be caught up at the scene that maybe have witnessed something. Why would they tell people not to share any of their experiences on the internet?
Well, they're the propaganda spin masters. They need to control the official narrative that is going to come of this. And so far, they've already shaped and molded the official narrative, which is this guy is a terrorist and he's a radical extremist who is doing things in retaliation for ISIS. Now, they have already came out and said this flat out, even though the fact that this just happened yesterday. We really don't know all the facts, but the Canadian media has already labeled this as a terrorist incident. As I said earlier, there's newspapers all over the world now saying terrorism has arrived in Canada, and they've already done the damage by conditioning Canadians to think that this indeed was a terrorist attack. Meanwhile, we don't even know. This guy could be set up, could be an informant, could have been incubated and coerced and co-opted into pulling off something like this, or allowed to let this happen. It's still too early to say, but there's a lot of still very, very fishy things and a lot of questions that we have here. And that's why we wanted to come down to counter a little bit of this MSM spin machine that's going on here.
Well, I also heard that not only did they tell the public, but the Canadian officials also told the Canadian press not to share pictures as well. I mean, since when did they tell the press not to share what they may have uncovered on video? I mean, I think that's pretty strange.
Yeah, they in fact have already made it rather difficult for myself to even acquire media accreditation to get into Ottawa's press gallery. They're making us run through loops, but of course, if you're part of the approved mainstream media who's going to tout the party line, then you're allowed in. But you know, we are here on the ground still, so yeah, you know, it's we're here just doing everything we can do to uncover everything. There's a lot going on right now. There's I'll show you. There's some huge media presence across the street. There's a lot of police officers here. This is actually the memorial itself right here where the individual was shot yesterday. And they have set up a little memorial here. As you can see, people have been visiting it all day long. That is the tomb of the unknown soldier that you can see back there. This is where the Canadian soldier was standing there on guard when the gunman walked up and shot him. And this soldier was armed with a weapon. However, they're not loaded. They don't let the Canadian soldiers here load their weapons when they're standing on guard. So unfortunately, he was fatally shot, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the family members. But had he been armed, perhaps this could have been avoided.
Yeah, that's a shame, and hopefully that'll change in the future. Now, we've also heard reports, and I wanted to ask you about this, that the Canadian police were actually pointing their weapons at journalists in order to intimidate them. I mean, have you heard anything about that?
I've seen some of that online. I just got in late last night and have just been filming out on the grounds, filming the whole time. So I haven't seen a whole lot of what's been coming in just yet from the mainstream media, other than what I'm hearing, around me here on the grounds here. But that is certainly no surprise. As I said, they need to be the propaganda spin masters. So if that means controlling Canadian journalists to the point of sticking guns in their faces, it looks like they're going to go to those extremes here to make sure that either the truth doesn't get out or that they make sure that they have all angles covered when it comes to telling the people what happened here.
All right, well, great report, Dan. We really appreciate it. Before we go, have you learned anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think the bottom line and the most important thing here is that we need to be very careful of the response to things like this. The Canadian government, we simply can't go on to bomb other countries in the Middle East because of this. We simply can't restrict Canadians' freedoms because of this. And so I would just encourage people to not live in fear of the terrorists. They've conditioned you to be this way. And let's just ensure that, we don't call for stricter gun control, more powers for the state, because they're the ones who always benefit from these types of events.
Fantastic. All right, thanks, Dan, from Ottawa, Canada. We look forward to more reports to come.
Thanks.
For more coverage from Dan Dix and the shooting at Parliament and the lockdown at Parliament, be sure to check out pressfortruth.ca. Now, we're going to take a quick break. The INFOWARS Nightly News will return right after this. So stick around.
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox Special at InfoWarsLife.com.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
I want to explain something. Interviewing multiple medical doctors, Harvard medical doctors, you name it, over the years. And a lot of articles have been written about this. You can look them up for yourself. There's a lot of evidence that Ebola was developed in laboratories and then released in the jungles of Western and Central Africa.
Larry Ford had mutated cholera, typhoid, anthrax, botulism, bubonic plague, and had also come up with germs that he called Kaffir-killing germs. Kaffir, as you may know, in Afrikaans, is the equivalent of the N-word. So these are germs that were specifically engineered to kill only black people.
In other words, an ethnic biological weapon.
As it mutates, it will become more aggressive and even airborne. And then one of the heads of the University of Texas Biology Department, who is a global exterminist, he believes that at least 90% of the population should be reduced. His acolytes, his graduate students that are now medical doctors, PhDs, microbiologists, responded to us criticizing him 6 years ago and the FBI visiting him by sending me open letters that we published saying, listen, we will exterminate everyone. In fact, here's quotes from the Texas newspapers that reported on it out of Houston. I watched in amazement as a few hundred members of the Texas Academy of Sciences rose to their feet and gave standing ovation to a speech that enthusiastically advocated the elimination of 90% of the Earth's population by airborne Ebola.
We are an epidemic waiting to happen. And because we're so mobile and so dense, we can get on airplanes and fly across oceans.
No, I think
disease is going to spread fast. And the people who've studied this, the epidemiologists
that's a common view,
and
Professor.
medical people are very, very concerned about the next pandemic.
The 2014 wave of upwards of 300,000 illegals crossing the United States southern border is only the beginning.
He's told the world that with a stroke of his pen, he will, by presidential directive, by executive order, provide legal status to 5 to 6 million people unlawfully in the country. Allowing any president to nullify law is a threat to the future of our republic and to the ultimate power of the people to control it.
As Obama's failed policies, scandals, and questionable leadership open a deep wound in the Democratic Party's dwindling chances.
Do you approve of the job President Obama is doing? Now, there'll be a chance to follow up, but this is a yes or no answer. Do you approve, yes or no?
In some ways I approve, and some things I don't approve.
President Barack Obama's administration missed their projected September 21st deadline.
What's your name?
Charlie.
Charlie?
Yeah.
Who are you with, Charlie?
Breitbart News.
Okay.
The recent story on the U.S. CIS preparing for a surge of government IDs. Do you have a response to that?
I don't. I'd refer you to USCIS on that. I don't have any information about that.
But it is coming. Leon Rodriguez, the director of the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, is hiring more asylum officers as a greater tsunami of illegals is expected by year's end.
So would you please tell us what is next on the president's agenda?
The directive that we have received is to examine possibilities for different avenues to exercising that prosecutorial discretion. I know that our secretary is in a process of engaging with frontline employees at DHS, members of Congress from both sides of the aisle, and stakeholders from a broad spectrum of American society. That process is ongoing.
Alarms of Ebola infiltrating the wide open and unprepared U.S. southern border have been numerous.
The immediate thing that really keeps me up awake at night, and I'll tell you it's the Ebola issue. You know, by the end of the year, there's supposed to be, by the CDC and World Health and all their estimates, 1.4 million people will have been infected by Ebola, and probably 62% or something like that will have died. That's the percentage. That's horrific. There's no way, and we're already seeing it, there's no way you can keep Ebola in West Africa. And as hard as we will try to deal with it and snuff it out there, it's going to run its course for some period of time. If it comes to the Western Hemisphere, many countries in the Western Hemisphere have about no ability to deal with an Ebola outbreak. So much like Western Africa, it'll rage for some period of time. Particularly if it gets to a place like Haiti, or if it gets to Central America. There's almost no reason to stay in Guatemala, El Salvador, or Honduras. There's very few job opportunities, no education access. And if you're a parent, you have a better than even chance of burying your son or daughter long before they grow into middle age. So there's almost no reason to stay there. If Ebola breaks out in Haiti or in Central America, I think it is literally Katie bar the door in terms of the mass migration of Central Americans into the United States. 68,000 children essentially wandered across our border this year. So these populations will move to either run away from Ebola, or if they have been are in the fear of having been infected to get to the United States will be taken care of. So that's one issue.